Hello, everybody. Larry here. Since our training, I've been thinking about notes, questions, follow-up ideas. And instead of putting something in an email, I decided to play with this new technology. So give me some feedback. Let me know how this works for you. So what I want to do is summarize the 4 or 5 key ideas that kept coming up from the training. And for a couple reasons, some of those are reminders of what we talked about and how you can work with them and how you can put these ideas into practice on a day-to-day basis. And the other side is, I know we just scratched the surface on some of this. So some of these ideas would be great candidates to dive more deeply into in the future and spend more time working with. So count on me, accountability, reliability, and credibility. I got a letter this week from United Airlines. And it's the new president, and this like list of what we value and what we're doing, and on time arrival, and I'm reading this letter and I'm kind of feeling to myself, blah 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 blah. So I wrote back to them because there's nothing in the letter about customer service, and I flew with United back when customer service was a huge priority. And to their credit, I got a note back from a woman who works with him, and she's going through frontline training and new protocols, and again, it's like blah 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 blah. These are things we're talking about doing, and customer service isn't about what you talk about doing. So I wrote them and shared that quote from Margaret Thatcher, who said, being a leader, how you show up, being a leader is a lot like being a lady. If you have to tell somebody you are, you aren't. And to me, that's what customer service is about, but that's also what credibility and accountability is about. People gauge whether or not you're reliable by how you show up. So we spend a lot of time talking about that, and that's just, if there's one key reminder, that's the part. And that ties right into this next notion of circle of concern, circle of influence. The more you focus your attention in the outside world where you have minimal ability to have an impact. So if you looked at campaign finance reform and election procedures and airplanes being bombed and brought down in the Mediterranean, or other things way outside your world of concern and influence, you can't do anything, but that depletes your energy and it lowers your attitude. It makes you less positive. When you focus in that inner circle, then this is the world where I can have a control. This is how I can participate more actively in meetings. This is how I can invite people to be better participants in the meeting. This is how I can engage people. This is where I can be a better delegator. This is how I can communicate better. This is where I can show more appreciation. In that inner circle is really the place where you increase dramatically the amount of influence and control you have. So the next piece we talked about was Simon Sinek, the Golden Circle. And the essence of this from Simon's work in that video, I'm going to give you a link for that here in a minute. He said every organization in America knows what they do, which is the outside circle. Very few know why they do it. Well, what, if we're not careful, can be busy work. And there's a huge difference between being busy and being productive. And so coming into that why, which is that inner purpose, why do I do what I do? What's important to me? How do I express myself? What's the driving motivational force? I think the way that Simon talks about this is, what's the higher calling or the deeper purpose that's behind me doing this? And when I'm clear on that, then I'm clear on what fits that, what doesn't. So, you remember I've been involved with parental care for the last 5 years, and there's a really powerful why there. And I can't even put it into words, but to be there for my parents in ways that they were there for me is really important. And I don't have any logic for that, but then I do things in my life that allow me to take care of my business and to come out and do work with you, but also to be there for my parents. The other way that this shows up is traveling. So I've been exploring ways that people travel and ways that they make money on the internet. And what I find, since I've done a lot of work with the Golden Circle, is I can tell very quickly if people are focused on what or why. And the what normally has to do with them making more money, and the why has to do with people who are really passionate about helping others create a lifestyle. And because I did the work with the Golden Circle, I can discern that difference really quickly, and I don't do a lot of, I spent much time with the what people. So example, Simon gave in his book and on the presentation, outside in, this is a what-based objective, and that's Starbucks Australia. Our aim will be to make Starbucks the most successful coffee chain in Australia. No energy, no pizzazz, no enthusiasm, outside in, and Starbucks did horrible in Australia. The alternative is when you're clear on your why and it comes out to your what is like Simon's wise. He wants to inspire people to do things that inspire them. And he wants to help build a world in which the vast majority of people go home every day feeling fulfilled by their work. Well, there's a excitement and an inspiration that's involved in that, and that's based on the why. And that's how you know you got your why. There's literally kind of a visceral feeling to what's going on there. So that's something that we could spend a lot more time with. Here's the link to the website. And I've gotten a lot of value from going there and working with, even with the podcast. So if this is something you want to revisit and do more work with in the future, let us know. Piece related to that, and I know some of you are working with this, is so much what that we can be involved with. How do you prioritize the 2 or 3 things that are most essential for you to bring into alignment in the course of your day? And general ideas, like he's talking about, Greg was talking about people who were successful the first time, failed the second time because they lost their essentialism. They had too many things they were trying to focus on. So the 2 ideas, if you don't prioritize your life, somebody else will. And I know this really well from, again, about me and being travel and having balance and flexibility and exercise and fitness in my life. I don't know how I stumbled upon that, but it's really contributed to the quality of my life. And the other part related to this is Jim Collins. If you aren't disciplined in the pursuit of the essential, you'll be undisciplined in the pursuit of more. So remember, I think I use the example that somewhere between 25 and 35% of all 2-car garages in America can't hold a car because they're full of stuff. That's what happens when you're not clear on the essentials. So next piece tied into that.
One of the most amazing things about you, and is whether we are talking in private, just the 2 of us over dinner, or whether you are talking to a stage of thousands of people, you are the same. It's just an incredible ability to be you, no matter where you are.
Well, incredible ability to be you. So there's one of my favorite quotes from Emerson who says, and this is my paraphrase, "Who you are speaks so loudly, I can't hear what you're saying." So that inner alignment, focus on the circle of concern where I have the ability to have an impact, clear on the essentials and the priority, really that speaks to me to authenticity and alignment and integrity. And when you're coming from that place, accountability, credibility, and responsibility is a pretty easy thing to fulfill. So the last piece, I use this oftentimes as a gauge or a monitor to invite people to think about whether you're spending more time managing or leading. And the other context for this is managers tell, leaders ask. What happens between those 2 is when you're telling, people are disengaged. When you're asking, people are engaged. They're honored. They're valued. So I've asked leaders in some leadership work in the past, is like over the course of a week, on a day-to-day basis, monitor what's the balance. How much of your time are you spending telling, and how much of the time are you spending asking? And my other sense with this is anything you can tell, you can ask. But asking takes a little bit more thought and patience. So first question, circular questions, why and who questions are victim and blaming questions. They don't lead to a positive outcome. They focus on blame. I'm getting ready to work with a group of about 90 people, and I talked to the coordinator who's putting this program together. And a lot of the issues that they talked about were what I would feel like fit into this category. The attitude people have toward them and the way that they approach the world and the things that they're concerned about. They're not positive questions. And so that's maybe the role that I'm going to bring in with them. The other thing is, I had food poisoning right after I came back from working with y'all. Very first question is like, where did you get it and who is responsible? It's like, does that matter? I mean, there's bugs everywhere, and I got it, and I had things in my home, I could treat it, and I was really ill for a night, and I didn't eat much for a couple of days, and got my system really clean. So what I'm really interested in is, how can I handle that differently next time? I had an intuition, I probably shouldn't eat this food, I was tired, I didn't pay attention to it. I'm responsible for that, and there's no who that I can blame that on. So QBQs, positive responsibility, personal responsibility, taking the time to ask a what or a how question instead of dropping back to what I call the lazy what or how is the who and why. So QBQs, question behind the question, focused on an outcome. How can we move forward? What's an action we can take? What can I do differently in the future? And this is one of those things that we can bring back and work with next time in the future. We just scratched the surface on this, and I have spent a full half a day working with clients on situations, performance reviews, coaching, delegation, discipline, meetings, management, motivation. What are questions we can ask that are QBQs around specific issues you have that are going to help you move forward together as a group, as a crew, as a district? So I am a traveler again, and there's been this message on the bulletin board about one of the things that bother me is like Vietnam, and people writing about how horrible Vietnam was. And there's a really popular travel blogger who's been traveling for about 10 years, horrible experience. And he wrote about it at such an extreme that people are debating now whether or not they should go to Vietnam. Well, it's not whether or not you should go to Vietnam, it's how should you go to Vietnam. Because if you go with the mindset that people are going to rip you off and take advantage of you, 90% of communication is nonverbal, you're going to interact with people in a way that will invite that to happen. So the question is, how can I approach this? How can I do this? What can I do to have the best possible experience? Because Vietnam was amazing. I mean, I had people go out of their way. And so related to everything else we've talked about, I wrote on one of these bulletins, one of these forums, that to me, it's not a whether or not Vietnam, Thailand, Cambodia, Indonesia, whether or not those are friendly countries, but it's more a matter to me that people remember the experience you have with travel is done with mirrors. What you put out comes back to you. If you're traveling with kindness and consideration and patience and all of those things, that's what you're much more likely to get back. And my experience is I feel like I travel with angels because I have these magical experiences all the time. Well, from a credibility and accountability standpoint, trust standpoint, it's the same thing. Put it out there. Put out what you want to get back in return. So last thing, thank you. I always love coming up and working with you. I look forward to working with you in the future. If there's any specific things that you want to spend more time with, or you want to go into deeper, or you want to go back and review, and I also know we talked a fair amount in different groups about delegation, so that's something we might bring back. Let the leadership team know. And I put this picture up there because, you know me, I'm going to be traveling, and I don't know where or when. I'm still taking care of Mom, but I'm planning a future trip, and when I do, I'll be happy to share it with you. In the meantime, God bless, take care. I look forward to seeing you in the future. Bye-bye.